That was by far the most disturbing episode of Snowpiercer that I've seen. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to WeSibs West Coast East Coast Siblings, where we break down your favorite movies and TV shows. Today we're talking Snowpiercer Episode 2. Now remember, me and The Basement with Zach are collabing on this, so you get 2 videos for every 1 episode. Typically we start off the show with the 3 biggest takeaways and I react, but I have to stop here because we had a scene that was so bad that they actually had to put a little blip of information and a phone number to call at the end of the episode because it involved a character and a bathtub and words I can't say because I'll get demonetized, but the ending of one's life by their own hand. I don't know if that gets past it or not. And just like animals and blood and just some of the grossest stuff. Definitely the grossest episode that I've seen. So I'm not going to spend the whole episode on this, but I got to get this off my chest because it was just sick and it was unnecessary. It didn't contribute to the story in any way. And I think it also adds a darker element to Wilford's character that we had not even seen at all in the movie or in the entirety of season 1. Now, say what you want about Wilford. He's a pretty bad dude. He definitely has some bad ideas about how to run a society. But for the most part, some people would actually argue he was the best fit to lead. I mean, his name is on the train. Nobody had, I guess, ever seen him do anything like what he did in this episode prior to that. People held him in high regard. But after seeing this, he definitely has a demented, sick, twisted something wrong upstairs MO. And I think that it almost completely betrays the character of Wilford that we had seen so far. Don't get me wrong, definitely a messed up dude, but not like that. I mean, again, they had to put that number at the end of the episode just because of the material that it dealt with. So I hope this is not a trend that we're going to start seeing with the show because it really doesn't need it. But I digress. With that, let's get into the biggest takeaways from the episode. A lot went down, guys. We have the Earth warming up. We have Melanie pretty much being exiled. And also, we have more information on Icy Big Bobby Blue. I think his name was Bob, right? Icy Bob. Okay, so let's dive into it. But before we do, hit the subscribe button, click the bell so that you don't miss. Let's get into it. Okay, so this episode pretty much centers around 2 main things. It's the prisoner swap, okay, the hospitality guy to Wilford's side in exchange for Melanie back to the Snowpiercer side. And of course, the other part of the episode, which was Melanie being sent away. And of course, the other part, which is the conflict between Melanie and her daughter, Alex. I think Alex is pretty much just being a brat, so I didn't chalk it up to a big takeaway. But a big takeaway that we had was with big boy Bobby Blue. So the hospitality member who died in that atrocious way, I can't even say it right, he told Layton that they had been experimenting on Big Boy Blue in order to make him resistant to cold. And we had talked about this last week. I talked with Zach from The Basement with Zach about how the doctors Hayward, they were the 2 doctors who were working with Melanie in last week's episode. They were likely the ones who were experimenting on people. And we also found out that Big Alice, the train, and also correction from last week's episode where I kept calling it Icebreaker. It's actually Big Alice is the train that Wilford is on. But they were taking people from that train, and there are 100 people on that train now, as we know, at least. And they were experimenting on them. And so Icy Bob was one of those people who got experimented on. And it's definitely creating some kind of super soldier. Now, I think that Wilford is going to use those doctors in order to make himself a little superpowered army in order to, brute force his will on the train. Also, a little side note, we caught up with Josie. She's been completely hospitalized. She's unconscious as well. And Zara tries to kill her. Apparently, Josie's getting in the way of her and Layton. So she was going to kill her, but decides against it, I guess. But that's something we want to keep our eyes on. But from there, Bess Till is also now the new detective. So obviously, because Andre Layton is now got his hands full and is leading the rebellion pretty much, Bess has now taken over his position as detective. So moving on to our second biggest takeaway, the Earth is warming, and this is a good thing. This story obviously revolves revolves around a frozen Earth, and they're at negative 96 degrees, I think it was. And so now that the Earth is warming, there's potential for life. Melanie later says in the episode that it could be warm enough to sustain life within their lifetime, and that ends up going to her detriment later on in the episode. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, this is huge. Much of Snowpiercer, at least as far as film and TV goes, revolves around them being inside the train. This is obviously a huge threat to Wilford and his power, being that he created the train and is seen and treated pretty much as a god on this train. So if people have the ability to pretty much Noah's Ark and get off that thing and begin their lives free on the Earth, or at least in a much bigger living space than being contained to that tuna can that is Big Alice and Snowpiercer, that's definitely going to threaten his control over the situation. I wouldn't imagine anyone would want to stay on the train if you could go and be in a warmer place. Now, there may be a trek that they have to make from the train to that warmer place, and some people may die along the way, but this is definitely something that they're setting up early in season 2. So I would imagine by mid-season 3, we're going to see some people on land as far as colonies and colonization of the Earth. The only question is, what is Snowpiercer without the trains? I mean, it basically becomes what, the 100 from the CW? I mean, it's basically people just trying to live life on an Earth that's been barren and now is livable. Which, while stories like that have worked, I think that Snowpiercer has a really great thing going with them being eternally contained on this train and the politics that kind of work themselves out there. Now, maybe the writers are seeing kind of the dead end. Eventually, you can only have so many transfers of power, and people really just do need more space in order to have a better story. So maybe the train is getting a little cramped. But of course, we do have Icebreaker that is still out there. We have Big Alice basically and Snowpiercer that are connected right now and have effectively become one train thanks to Melanie in the last episode. But there are more trains coming, but I guess it would just be kind of the same cycle of power swapping and politics. So maybe seeing that dead end, they want to expand as early as they can out into the open world. Now, before we get to the third and biggest takeaway, a couple other small things. First of all, LJ, if you remember her, this was the first episode we saw her back really, and she's trying to kiss up to Wilford, trying to snatch a bit more of her elite life she once had before her parents were killed in the rebellion. And then another thing that happened is Leighton, Mel, and the rebellion decide to send an invite to Wilford to come and be amongst them in the train to have kind of a welcome party. And of course, Wilford's going to use this to his advantage, using his charm and the fact that his name is on the train in order to rally people. Basically, this is like a campaign trail for him, but they're using it as an opportunity to get him exposed and to attack him. Now, we know, and they've reiterated this throughout the entire episode and even last week, that Wilford is after Leighton. Given the chance, he will kill him. Melanie, of course, is a threat, but he knows Melanie. He's worked with Melanie, and she's already destroyed her reputation by lying to all those people for the last 7 years. So I don't imagine he would have that much of an issue defeating someone like her in the political realm. But Leighton, he's seen as a rebel, an outsider, somebody who started from the bottom, and now he's basically leading all of Snowpiercer, which is a bigger train than Big Alice. So he has more people at his disposal right now than even Wilford does. So we'll have to see how that whole power dynamic plays out, but let me know what your predictions are. And of course, what you thought of this episode. This was definitely a disturbing new direction. I hope it's not a new direction. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Leave a like on the video if you like the video. This is video reviews with a conscience. But of course, subscribe, click the bell. Thank you guys so much for watching as always, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.